Hello, 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 divine divas. Today we are going to talk about high frequency societies and how government shifts and changes, and then why this was so important for me to bring to your awareness today. So, what happens when a planet rises in frequency like the Earth is rising in frequency right now? What does the governments look like in societies that stop operating from like control and scarcity and really move into sovereignty and unity? Well, if you want a spoiler alert, no one is waiting around for any politician to save them. No one is waiting for the law to tell them that they are free. And no one in a high society, frequency society is trying to regulate someone else's life. Because when you step into sovereignty and fully, really embody that divinity, then old mechanisms don't even apply anymore. So, right now, we are witnessing one of the biggest planetary shifts in history. It's never happened for us. And from what I'm hearing, it has never happened in the galaxy like this before. And so I know you can see it and you can feel it. You know, everything is changing: governments, economies, leadership structures. The way we engage with power and authority is adjusting. And as this happens, governance itself needs to transform. Old 3D hierarchical structures, like where power is hoarded at the top of the triangle and enforced by fear, those all go away. And what we are shifting into is fifth density counseling, which is based on leadership, where highest wisdom, not the loudest voice, leads. Now, I know that it doesn't feel like that. You're like, no, we're going back to craziness and we're seeing a lot of loud people. That is an extinction burst, and I'll do a whole podcast on it. But what that means is that because they feel the death rattle for the patriarchy, because they feel the death rattle for what they're doing isn't working anymore, and because they feel it, they crank it up even more, crank it up even higher, and people are like, oh my goodness. But mark my words, at the time of this recording, give it a couple more weeks, it'll be over. You're going to come back and be like, wow, Christine, you were right. Okay, so here's the kicker. A lot of people may be afraid of the shift, so they cling on to these old ways, as I was just saying. Because for them it is an ending for them. But for you listening to this podcast, you who are at a high enough vibration to be able to hear this podcast, you are here to anchor in the new, and this is exactly what you've been waiting for. So let's break this down. What does governance look like at a different planetary frequency? Because Earth is governed by rigid, fear-based, control, heavy structure, right? It's not a natural state of an evolved civilization. It's simply where we are on our timeline and where we are in our frequency. And just like individuals can rise in awareness and ascend in vibrational frequency, so can planets, and the Earth is actually doing it right now. So let's talk about the 3D governance and the age of control and scarcity. So the old world system, the one that's currently crumbling as I speak, is based on hierarchical, fear-based, rooted in control. It's a system where power is hoarded at the top and rules are enforced through punishment and fear. And you can see it with suppression, voter suppression, like those type of things, right? In order to stay in power, and because things were changing, you had to enforce like these Ku Klux Klan, Jim Crow type laws to remove votes of people of color. You have to enforce do nefarious things with voting machines. Elon knows those voting machines, ha ha ha, right? Those type of things. Those are things that you have to do in order to stay in power. But let me tell you something. Government control through laws, taxes, policing, and force, it is dying, right? And so ruling by punishment is not a space where you are existing in a higher frequency of peace. Fear-based systems like debt slavery and artificial scarcity, keeping people in financial struggles so that they feel distracted and afraid, all of that is crumbling and going away. And then also something that worked very well in 3D systems is divide and conquer. So when you divide, you make groups hate each other groups. I was just talking about this with my PR lady, and we were talking about, like, she was talking about DEI, and we were talking about affirmative action and things like that. And I said, do you understand that those systems really never supported the Black community like it was supposed to, right? The biggest beneficiaries of diversity, equity, inclusion were white women and white men who were veterans or disabled, if you look at the percentage of hirings. So the same happened with affirmative action. The biggest beneficiaries were the Asian population, which was gorgeous. And it was great for them. But what happened, to divide and conquer, they were lied to. They were told Black people are taking your spots in school. There's a reason, all these Black people wouldn't be here, or these other people of color would not be here. Your grades are better, blah, blah, blah. That's what they were told. And so they did this big thing, went to the Supreme Court, had them get rid of all affirmative action. 1 year later, they effed around and found out, because the majority of people that benefited, their percentage of entries or new entries into school, right? Their percentage of getting into Harvard and some of these other schools went down by like 10 or 20%. And the number of white kids went way up. The number of Black kids and Latino kids stayed exactly the same. Exactly the same. And it's the same with diversity, equity, inclusion. Like the percent of Black executives was like 5.9% before, and then after it was 6%. So you gained 0.1%. But the percentage of white women leaders, the percentage of disabled veterans, and they should get like some jobs, but the percentage of white men who benefited from that was way more. And so but in order to divide and conquer, we make people hate someone. They're taking your job, you need to hate them. This person's taking your spot in school. So it's all about dividing, lying, and creating this scarcity narrative so that people start to fight with each other for quote unquote limited resources, when we know that nothing is limited. If you're too busy fighting over race, politics, religion, and money, you'll never stop to ask why such a tiny group of people are holding such a vast amount of resources and have all of the decision making, not all, have some of the decision making power. Because guess what? You're a divinity. No one controls you. So here's the thing. This system worked for so long, it kept people asleep, but so many people are waking up. So many people, that's why they hate the word woke. They hate that because people were opening their eyes to see and healing, quote unquote sins of the past. And they were like, we get to move forward differently. And they didn't like that, because the more people awaken, the more people step outside of this illusion, the harder it is to control. And so the system worked for a long time because people were asleep. It made people believe that they needed external governance and rules and cracking down and all of that to survive. But you and everyone listening to this has woken up, and you started to say, wait a second, why am I giving all of my power away? I am God. I am divinity. I am source. I am all that is. Why am I outsourcing my power when I should be insourcing it? You were asking, why do a handful of people get to decide what I can and cannot do with my own body, with my money, with my energy? You started asking, why am I myself working to the ground to keep a system running that never benefited me in the first place? And this is what we call the Great Awakening. And so the next transitional phase of what government can look like is, I call the Great Awakening. It's like the 4D. Even though we know the 4D isn't physical, it's, there's another story all about that. But let's just call this what I'm calling the 4D transition phase into the Great Awakening. And so in the 4D, this is where we start questioning. This is where people are waking up to the fact that they've been lied to, manipulated, played. The veil is lifting in this phase. And this is where we are now. In fact, I believe we're a lot closer to the 5D than even the 4D. But let me give you some explanations and you see where you stand. But some people are waking up so fast, they're breaking free from the matrix, while others are clinging to the old system. So it's kind of like that 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And so in 4D, governance is messy because people start rejecting external control, mass decentralization starts, alternative economies, different barter systems. Like people start looking at money in a different way. They start, like, you think about the internet, think about like the mass growth of entrepreneurs that happened during the 2020. People weren't going back to work. People wanted to work from home. They wanted this flexibility, all of these different changes, which is not what that group wants. The group that is controlling. They're like, no, we need to see you. You need to come to the office. You need to be tired. You need to be exhausted. You need to be this. And they were like, no, no, no. Its sovereignty started to grow, and people are starting to opt out of government mandates, forced participation in systems that they don't see value in. Look at how people are exiting banking systems. More and more people are saying no to debt. They're saying no to big banks manipulating currency. It's this decentralization that is feeling like financial freedom. And then there's, like I said, there's so many people being entrepreneurs, remembering that 9 to 5, okay, that's a limited amount of money that I can receive. But if I have my own company and I created my own programs and my own things, that is an unlimited amount of money that I can receive. And so if you look at it, people are fighting this shift so hard because they're trying to push fear, make people feel like they're, not safe. And this isn't safe. This is blah, blah, blah. When the truth is, where we were was not safe. Where we were was a trap. And so now let's talk about fifth density and beyond. This is governance without control. This is where we're headed, and very soon I think we're going to start seeing remnants of this begin. And so when you think about higher dimensions, there are no real laws, no enforcers, no rules, because there's no need for them. And I know this sounds crazy, keep listening. You're like, what do you mean, Christine? Or a world where people are not committing crimes, fighting for power, and trying to control each other? What is that? Yes, this exists because you're in 5D consciousness. You're operating from energetic alignment. And so there's more of a council-based leadership, which operates on energetic wisdom, not manipulation, not votes that were manipulated. The leadership is fluid, and it moves with the needs of the people. You see, there's no need for laws because low frequency behavior literally cannot sustain itself in high frequency environments. So if you try to manipulate or hoard or control energetically, you remove yourself from this reality. You will not be able to function. But societies will function through telepathy. You can't lie and manipulate people when you can read each other's minds. Instant manifestation. It functions through instant manifestation, harmony, and telepathy. And there's no need for contracts, policing, government oversight, because people are connected as a whole. There's this oneness energy. And so I'll give you some examples. So if we look at what, and these are tapped in examples, and old world frequencies have worked with this, and some of our galactic um, interdimensional beings have governance like this. So in Lemuria, they were governed by high councils. There was no centralized control. It was very fluid leadership. They guided using frequency. In Palladian civilizations, it's entirely telepathic, so there's no need for any kind of hierarchy. Everyone is aligned with their divine purpose, so there's no need to enforce, and everyone simply contributes to everyone's higher self. You know how you say what is good and best for everyone involved? That is that society. In the Andromeda Federation, it is governed by energetic alignment. Leaders do not impose decisions on others, they hold the vibration of what's possible and let the collective move towards it. Notice how all of these vibrational societies govern through resonance. It's not rules, it's resonance. So resonance over rules. Because it's not about force, it's about who you are. And so if you look at this and you break down like planetary frequencies, high frequency civilizations, powers, laws, elections, enforcement, all of those things, what I want you to see is that everything at the time of this recording that is happening with the government of the US, that's happening all around the world with governments, you are seeing that this hierarchical government is starting to dissolve. And what I believe is that it's going to be replaced by council-based leadership that's going to pick the highest frequency and vibration humans to lead. And it won't be like a voting process. We will just know that that is the person to lead. And in the beginning, for a while, most of these leaders are going to be women. And that is because of the divine feminine, because of the need to write like the frequency, because of the need to bring it into the fifth density. They're going to need these powerful women who are used to leading in circles and covens and council based. You will no longer be looking for someone to rule you or save you. It's not even anybody to represent you or fight for your interests, because everybody will naturally be aligned with the highest good of all. These councils work differently than anything we've ever seen, because it's no one is winning the leadership, right? No elections, no campaigning, no needing to prove yourself as the best option. Leadership and the people a part of this council will naturally emerge as the highest frequency, deepest wisdom, and clearest alignment on a collective vision. Decisions will not be made through debate or negotiation or arguing or compromising. It will be made through telepathic connection and unity consciousness. So there's no need for enforcement, only embodiment. And if you hold the high enough frequency to serve on the council, it is not because you have power over people or because you paid for it, right? It's not because you invested, $250 million. It's going to be because your vibration holds the clearest vision for the collective. Let me give you an example. So imagine a world where the leader is simply recognized because their presence alone radiates highest clarity and wisdom. You see, right now, leaders have to convince. I'm the one because of this. I'm going to work on your, for your issues. I'm going to fight for you. I'll be the one fighting for you. And they're the ones with the best marketing, the best public relations team. If you look at those of you who are in the US or even those of you outside the US, if you look at the response to Kamala Harris when she entered into the race, and people were joyful, they were dancing, they were laughing, and you had hundreds of thousands of people donating very small amounts, but that's what built up that $2 billion. It wasn't from a few billionaire tech bros, it was from a large amount of people. And when you think of the response to the positivity versus the negativity, you see that the country and the world is so ready for that type of leadership. People who are in their divinity, not backing down. It's so important. And so when you have a society where the right leader rises up because they embody the solution, then you don't have to vote. You don't need competition or manipulation or even a whole bunch of like donations because the collective is simply going to align with the people that are meant to be on this council. It's called vibrational leadership. And if someone is not aligned with the highest frequency of truth, then they would not sustain that leadership. They'll naturally step down or be repelled out of the role, because leadership isn't something that you're just holding on to in the higher frequencies. It's something that you maintain as long as you are in alignment with it. And so when there's no need for laws because you're so high frequency, you start to move in an energy that is always best for all because your frequency is so high. This is why I created the Divinity House, because it really is about raising our frequencies. And the more you raise your frequency, the less you're going to attract people who aren't in alignment with you and your message and the frequency that you are holding for your containers. In the 3D, elections are contests, like who's going to win. And in the 5th, your leaders are felt. It's energetic. It's like tuning into a radio station, and the person with the clearest and the strongest frequency will win. Or rise up, I guess. Win is not even a good word for that. We've been taught that without rules, that humanity would descend into chaos, that without government, our society would collapse, and without control, power-hungry people would take over. It's all 3D fear programming. The truth is when the society is operating on a high frequency, there's no need for enforcement because people will naturally align with what serves everyone the best. And this is where the earth is headed. So now that you understand how high frequency civilizations operate and why leadership is shifting from power to resonance, now you can open your eyes and start noticing how we're in the midst of a messy AF transition. And things that happened, the manipulation of votes, the voter suppression, all of the things that stopped Kamala from taking her rightful place as president, it all needed to happen because it needs to tear down the existing system. You can't change something building on a shaky foundation or building on the crap that's there. You've got to burn it all down, and that's what's happening right now. The shift is happening and a collapse is inevitable, but don't fear. It's not a bad collapse. It's actually a great collapse because New Earth is forming right now. And the transition that we're experiencing is unlike anything we've ever seen. And every Every 3D reality that is held up is going to crumble in real time, which means that things are going to shift quickly. And so government corruption is being exposed at record speed. The illusion of democracy and fairness, people are now seeing through it. You can see in the town halls where people are fighting and they're yelling and they're telling their representative, you represent us and not the other way around. You can see it. These town halls are normally empty. Corporate structures, people are quitting jobs, they're leaving corporate structures, they're opting out of systems that were designed to keep them exhausted and dependent. And you've got the oligarchs, elite, that are panicking. They want more surveillance, more fear, more division. They try to create so much chaos, and we're just looking directly straight through it. And so what you get to do is you get to start tapping into your body and feeling your way through these transitions. Here are some of the biggest signs that it's shifting. And I want you to remember these. I said it throughout this podcast, but I want you to feel these. One, people are rejecting fear-based government. Anything that's trying to keep them afraid of war, afraid of the economy, afraid of interdimensional beings, afraid of anything that's different, afraid of each other. People are not buying it anymore. And they're like, I'm not having it. We're not having it. Sovereign communities are forming. And so you have more and more people doing homesteading, co-living, international communities, like leaving their normal countries and just doing things differently. And it's where they can create their own rules. This is happening a lot more often. Telepathy. People are talking about telepathy a lot more often. You know, a lot of my tools and the things that I've created, the things that we're going to go through in Divinity House and La Lumiere all involve telepathy, and it's powerful. But telepathic communication, you'll see from the telepathy tapes and some of the podcasts, they're showing that this is increasing because we are all connected. And because of that, people can feel that something's off without even people saying anything. The intuition is getting stronger and downloads are getting faster. And that's why, if you listen to the previous podcast that I did, that is why Christian nationalists are doing things to cut down all the forests and create, like, expedite the end of the quote unquote world, because they think that they're going to be the ones saved and, whatever. But this is why. It's because they feel that their power is slipping. And the more people become telepathic, the more people become intuitive, the more they're going to reject organized religion and organized anything that's meant to keep them subjugated. And so those who are trying to maintain this 3D illusion of control, that's what I'm going to call it. It's an illusion of control, are struggling. And they're trying to plug you back into the system. They're trying to distract you. They're trying to create more laws, control the body, take women out of power, try to separate with, fear-based narratives and hate-based narratives. And we are not buying it anymore. More than ever, right after the election, so many people turned off their televisions. How does Kendrick say? Turn the TV off, turn the TV off, turn the TV off. So many people turned off their TVs and stopped watching the mainstream news because they knew something wasn't right. And the more you wake up, the more you step into your divinity, the more you start inner sourcing instead of outsourcing, lower frequencies will have no place to land. They can't exist. And so this is why you're seeing the chaos in the world. This is why you'll see it seems like things are getting worse, but it's not true. The old systems are dying and they are loud on their way out. So the first thing you also need to know is the new earth is rising in frequency. There will not be a war over this. In fact, this is why you see a higher presence of interdimensional beings, because they're like, you get your finger off that button, because we will not allow a war that's going to destroy this planet. And so if you are listening to this, one, that means that you've been working on your vibration, you've been shifting, clearing, doing your shadow work. You're for lack of a better word, striving to be the better you every single day. You will not be a part of any kind of war. The new earth is going to emerge through frequency. And as this frequency of the collection rises, the structures will collapse, but it will not take you with it unless you decide to lower your frequency and start paying attention to it and start letting the fear control you again. The systems are really breaking down through irrelevance. And so the more people that continue to opt out and just become more aware and woke, quote unquote, the more that these systems start to fade away because they have nothing to grip onto. And so you get to choose to align with the frequency of the world where control and fear have no power over you right now. Right now, you can choose to detach from the collapsing systems and move into inner sourcing. Move into your inner divinity, listening to your inner God voice, remembering that you are divine, remembering that you are God. You can choose to anchor into the reality where leadership is about resonance. Now, you don't have to wait. I mean, you see where the earth is headed. You feel it. You're listening to this because you do. And so what you get to remember is that you are your own government. I'm going to say it again. You are your own government. No one outside of you is in charge of your experience. No one can forcefully create in your reality. There's no external system that dictates your power. Your mind is your Congress. Your emotions are your advisors, and your actions, your movements are your laws. And so when you master your own energy, your own thoughts, your own frequency, you will naturally rise into leadership of the new earth. And so instead of waiting the government to fix the economy, you align to a timeline where abundance flows to you effortlessly. Instead of waiting for external systems to recognize your value, you recognize your own worth, create your own opportunities. And instead of fearing what quote unquote they might do next, you move with certainty, knowing that no lower frequency can touch you. Because here's the truth, no one can govern you unless you give them the power to. The next thing you need to do is surround yourself with people who are moving in the same way. You are not meant to do this alone. You got to move into spaces where sovereignty is your standard, not some guru space that says, I know everything, follow me. But someone that says, you are God, you are God frequency, you are divinity in the body. Let's activate that. Let's activate this remembrance. When you move into communities that focus on getting into higher consciousness, increasing your vibration, where people aren't waiting for change, they become the change, then you move even faster. Because when you don't allow yourself to be surrounded by people that are in 3D fear and victim mindset, then you don't allow that energy to seep in. You move at a quantum speed. You truly are the average of the frequencies that you engage with. So if you're serious about stepping into 5D leadership, you should look at Divinity House or La Lumiere. The links are in the bio. So here's another thing that you get to do. is you get to detach from the collapsing systems. And so I've been saying over and over again, observe. So observe, like you can look at it, you can see it, but don't absorb it in. Because all of these structures built on fear and scarcity and manipulation, they're built to take your vibration down. And the more energy you give to it, the more you anchor yourself in. It's like you're paying attention. So you're paying, putting money in, paying into the old system. And you're feeding it with your attention. You're feeding it with your emotion. So if you worry about the economy collapsing, you reinforce that in your reality. If you're consumed with what is the government doing, you are staying energetically entangled in their control. And if you're fearing what is coming next, you are aligning with the timeline that you need to fear. You will not build a new earth while staying emotionally invested in the old one. So instead of reacting to fear, observe and rise above. Instead of fighting the old stuff, build something new. Instead of worrying, focus on what you are creating, because your focus determines your reality. This is your role. This is your role. You raised your hand to come into this earth at this time because you are a leader. And the new earth isn't something that you are waiting for. It is already here. And so you raised your hand and decided that you wanted to be in this leadership. So it is important for you to move with vibrational sovereignty. It is important for you to look an inner source, not outer source. It is important for you to operate with a council-like decision-making process, for you to really trust higher wisdom within you, for you to move with certainty and not move in fear, and for you to hold your vision. You are your own government. Align with higher frequencies, surround yourself with powerful people, detach from the old systems and the old, like looking at the old patriarchy, detach from looking at that and paying attention to that, and focus on where you're going. We are transitioning from hierarchy to harmony. You get to choose your frequency right now. You are the architect of the new earth. And when you rise, others rise with you naturally. So let's build this community together. This is why I created the spaces of the Divinity House, which is for the high frequency women that want to anchor in their sovereignty. And La Lumiere, which is the light circle. This is the audio membership where you get all of these activations and really get to tap into your highest frequency every day. Because power is your choice. And if this episode really landed for you, take a screenshot and share it on Instagram. Tag me at i.m.thealignedsoul with whatever your biggest takeaway was. Because we truly do rise together. And so hugs and kisses, all the feels. Stay bougie, be healed, and keep it divine, Diva.